Let's get some takeaways from the Spurs win. Yes, win over the Phoenix Suns. Should the Spurs consider a fire sale? And what are y'all talking about over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Springs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's Five San Antonio. Make sure to follow us wherever you get your favorite podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. The list goes on and on. Pick a platform, we are practically there. Hey, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You got to download the PrizePicks app right now. The easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for first deposit match up to $100. Hey, what are we talking about today? Well, I'm going to give you my takeaways from the Spurs win last night versus the Suns. Then bring in our guest, Rudy Campos, to sweep the league. We're going to be discussing the Spurs should consider a fire sale. Yes, just rebuilding all over again around Wemby, head into the offseason, and then see what you guys are talking about over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. But first, about last night's Spurs win. Yes, I got the stats right here. What a win. What a win. After getting pretty much stomped versus Phoenix in the previous game, before last night's game, the Spurs came out, looked like they wanted to set the tone early, and that's what they did, and that's my takeaway. First one, right off the bat, is setting the tone early. Spurs outscored the Suns 29-22 in the opening frame and really set the tone. They were being a lot more physical, being more aggressive, connecting on their shots, and that carried over throughout the game. Look, Phoenix was Phoenix. You know, they made their run too. They had the biggest lead for them was at 9, but the Spurs' largest lead was at 11. And you look at that final frame, and when Phoenix came back to take the lead late in the fourth, the Spurs had that mettle just to hang in there, and credit Jeremy Sohan, more on him later, for hitting the game-winning shot. And your final score 104-102. So Spurs really set the tone early, played with tenacity, played with grunt, as Popovich would say, throughout the entire game. So kudos to them. Takeaway number 2 is that they played with some passion. They all but admitted that getting stopped by the way they did versus Phoenix in the previous meeting before last night's game, I think they lost by 20 plus points. At one point, it was 30 plus point deficit for them. Just really getting embarrassed. And that they felt was, they took it personal. They said, they shouldn't have done that, and they wanted to come out and prove that they were not that team that got curb stomped by Phoenix heading into last night's game. And you saw it on that court. Defense. Look, for today's standards, holding the Phoenix Suns with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker to 104 points. 102 points, excuse me. Really impressive. And to hold that team, Phoenix Suns, 102 points. So pretty good on them. And you really like that out of them. They came with that spirit for the entire game. And look, one of the other takeaways I'm bringing about, it's not really the last one, but this kind of coincides with takeaway number 2 is just 7 turnovers. This team has been a turnover machine of late, with 7 turnovers for the game. Not too bad. They valued the ball. Kudos to them. That's really, really been a big issue for them throughout the season. But at least versus Phoenix, they played and they took care of the ball. Minimal turnovers. And takeaway number 3, got to be Jeremy Sohan. Look, he finished with 26 points, 18 rebounds in about 35 minutes of play. More importantly, he played pretty good defense. I mean, really good defense on Kevin Durant. He got praise from Zach Collins. I actually asked Zach Collins about the way Sohan just played that defense versus Durant following the game. He told me that pretty much Jeremy was good on both ends of the night. That he was locked in to start the game. He forced some turnovers. He hit those jumpers, and just a lot of praise from him. I talked to Sohan himself after the game. He said he was just locked in. He just knew what he had to do versus Durant. So you really got to tip your cap to Sohan for what he did. So there you have it. Quick takeaways from the Spurs 104-102 win versus the Suns. Spurs go up to 16-56. Next face Utah this Wednesday out in Salt Lake City. So that'll be a road game. Hopefully the Spurs can carry that momentum heading into the game versus Utah. All right, coming up next, we have Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. We're going to be discussing if the Spurs should consider a fire sale. Yeah, just start all over again next season, just to build around a better team around Wemby, and then see what you guys are talking about the Locked On Spurs YouTube fan page. Hey, I want to talk to you about PrizePicks. You got to get PrizePicks right now, everybody. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. Easiest, most exciting way to play fantasy sports. Well, daily fantasy sports, that is. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You can start watching the winnings roll in. Look, they offer so much over at PrizePicks. Simple to play. You can make your picks and submit them in pretty much less than 60 seconds. You want quick withdrawals? They got that too. Easy gameplay and enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And they even offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this basketball season. Look, what more do you need? Go download the PrizePicks app right now. Mobile device, cell phone, whatever you need, go sign up right now. And look, you want to go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA right now. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Code is LockedOnNBA. That'll get your first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
This is Emily Swallow, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're now joined by Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. Rudy, welcome back to Locked On Spurs.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Been a long weekend, huh?
You're telling me, that's pretty much what spurred on, no pun intended, this second right now. But everybody, make sure to check out Rudy's show, Sweep the League, on YouTube, part of the Animal City Sports Podcast. Go subscribe to them right now. They talk about everything from NFL, NBA, boxing, pop culture, and the list goes on and on. Definitely a must watch for everybody out there in the entire world. Because Rudy's global. You're global, Rudy.
It says it right there, right? Global. It's right there.
Exactly. I see it. See, I didn't see that before we hit record. Okay, now I see it. All right. See, you're now global. He's literally global, everybody. All right, Rudy. So, look. This past weekend was not a good one for the Spurs. It was just horrendous. You come in versus Memphis, one of the worst teams in the NBA, let alone the West. No John Morant. Spurs had a double-figure lead on them, and they blow it. Next up, you have Phoenix Suns, and okay, fine. Maybe you can chalk that up for an L for the Spurs going into that game, but show some fight, show some spirit. Really, they got massacred. It was not even a contest. I mean, they're down by 30 plus points at one time. Yeah, it begs a question. Well, not actually a question, Rudy. I mean, it's a fact. This team is not good. I mean, they say you are who your record is. Guess what? They are that. They're that. Outside of Wemby, Rudy, and based on the last two games, at least prior to last night's game versus Phoenix, is it time just to have a fire sale? Is it time just to blow it all up minus Wemby and restart the rebuild from scratch?
You put a perfect bow on everything when you had said that, your record is what it basically you are what your record is. And that's kind of what the fact of the Spurs. We saw the same guys pre-Wemby. They're not a good team pre-Wemby. When you trade away a DeJounte Murray and a Derek White, you're already thinking for the future. So blowing it up, Jeff, it's very difficult to blow it up because let's be honest, 80% of these guys that are on the team are probably going to be here next season, going into the offseason. The only guy who I might see that's a big name for the Spurs is Keldon Johnson, maybe moving in the offseason for a trade. But you're gonna see Sohan. You're probably gonna see Vassell back, probably Trey Jones. You're gonna see majority of the guys back. But if it's us, I mean, if it's fans and everybody else, you're wanting to make that massive, trade that, blow it all up and start fresh. But in today's game, and really in any game, it's kind of tough to just do a complete fire sale. You're going to get pennies on the dollar for a lot of these guys. You're not going to get a whole lot in return. So kind of move forward. And instead of maybe blowing it up, just kind of build on what you have, because let's face it, you can't get any lower than where you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's bad. It's bad. And how did Vegas know this team was going to be bad? How did Rudy know this team was going to be bad? It still baffles me. But, if you're a proponent for just blowing it up, then there's a problem there. The problem is you're resetting the rebuild. You're starting from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe a reset could be good. Maybe you reset the rebuild with power players, with draft picks, who you're going to pick. If they do tank again next year, maybe they get another high draft pick, or parlay some of these picks and players they have and bring in power players via trades. Look, we get it. Big name free agents won't come to San Antonio. Maybe Wemby will change that, but as of this recording, historically they don't. So in a way is to force them to come to San Antonio via trade. So, if the Spurs were to flip a lot of these players and these contracts and these draft picks that's sitting on and some of the cash they're sitting on, maybe trading away for just an instant team could be good. You know how the Spurs would always say, Spurs fans, oh, we're built, we're not bought. Well, maybe it's time they start buying instead of building, Rudy.
If you want an instant successful team, you're going to have to buy. You're not going to be able to.
And they can do that. They can afford to do that.
They can afford to do that. But so let me rephrase the way I wanted to answer this was they can afford to buy a team, but at what cost? Because if you go and trade for a Trae Young, you're probably going to lose draft picks, Keldon or Devin. So you add Trae. Does Trae move the needle to 28 wins with Wemby? 30 wins?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say because if you lose Devin, you're losing your second best player, and basically, so you kind of switch a one for the other. It's like they've got to go get a veteran. This is where I said the best offseason is you go and get a Trae Young, you go and sign a Klay Thompson. Yes, he's at the end of his career, but he brings in that shooting that you massively need. You may not have to give up a Devin. So now you're looking at a starting lineup of like a Trae Young, Klay Thompson, Devin Vassell, and Victor Wembanyama. That seems to be more appealing as to, okay, this rebuild is going forward, full head steam, and you don't lose a whole lot. So that part right there is kind of tough. You've mentioned not many free agents want to come to San Antonio. And if they do, they're in the tail end. Tracy McGrady, Glenn Robinson, big time players that came at the tail end of their career. Dominique Wilkins is another one. But I mean, you got to make a move. It's got to be through a trade. If not, you're going to get the same team back next year. The biggest thing is through the draft. You've got so many draft picks. You've got to start hitting on them. I mean, where the Spurs were geniuses on draft night, from anywhere from Leandro Barboza, even though he wasn't in the Spurs uniform, he made a difference, for the Phoenix Suns, to finding guys like DeJounte Murray and Tony Parker, even Manu Ginobili in the second round. So they haven't hit on these draft picks, and with all these picks, they're good for nothing if you can't start hitting on them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Rudy. It's it was such a horrific weekend. It really was. It was just bad, and I understand why Spurs fans are upset and, at the product. This is a product that was touted as a winner before the start of the season.
By who?
So,
by who?
By players, by Coach Pop. You look at that, and that's why I think this offseason is perhaps one of the most critical already for Wemby, moving forward, because let's face it, it's going to be his show. It already is his show. And look, he talked about it after the game over the weekend. He was over Phoenix after Phoenix game, where he said, he would like to be a part of the rebuilding and planning and structuring of the team. Let him get involved in that. And we saw during the Kawhi Leonard time, remember the report? He came out and said that he wanted the Spurs to trade for Paul George.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
If Wemby does that again, if Wemby says something similar, and I'm making this up, trade for Trae Young, I hope the Spurs will listen and make that happen. If he feels that makes him a good player. And that's where I think the fire sale could come in. Look, we talk about how Keldon is like one of the players you can dangle the most in front of a team to make a deal. Well, what's wrong with saying that for Vassell? I mean, is he really untouchable, Rudy? Is he really that untouchable?
Nobody on the team is untouchable. I mean, I've even said, you have to take calls on your best player, being Wemby and even whoever. But, I mean, you're not going to make the move. But when it comes to Devin Vassell, he's not untouchable. I mean, the guy is your best asset outside of Victor Wembanyama. So teams would pay not necessarily a huge premium, but they're going to give you a better deal than if you dangle, Keldon Johnson or Jeremy
Yeah.
Sohan in there. So, the dangling part about some of these guys is like Trae Young. I mean, he's going to command some draft picks in return.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you got to understand. You got to figure, is Trae Young worth losing younger prospects, especially in a loaded 2025 draft? I mean, if I can get a lot of draft picks for 2025 in that first round, I'm doing it. So I don't know if Trae's worth that much. I don't know if one player is worth possibly getting 2, maybe 3 difference makers in 2025. You're actually helping the Hawks fast forward their rebuild by doing something like that if you're getting rid of 2025 draft picks. If it's this year, by all means, if they get their pick and Toronto's pick, I mean, the possibility is there to trade both of those picks for a Trae Young, and then I'm all for that because you're not losing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting time, for the Spurs already in Wemby's rookie season, because they're going to have to do right by him. They're going to want to build around him. He's putting up monsters numbers. Everybody's applauding him. He's only going to get better. And the last thing they need is this team to get better. I'm sorry, for him to get better and the team get worse. I mean, think about it. They got worse record-wise last year than this year. They're a worse team than by record they are. And they're you're going to finish that way. But as far as a fire sale is concerned, yeah, I think you have, if you're the Spurs, you have no choice but to keep your phone lines open for everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Even if it's for sale. Maybe not Wemby. Wemby, I'm close to just hanging up, but it's just I think it's a time where the Spurs just really need to start thinking about buying teams versus building teams, because they build teams, Rudy. They're gonna fall further behind the pack, as other teams lap them. The Spurs historically has not made any blockbuster moves of late. And when was the last time they made a blockbuster move? I mean, trade either in season
Richard
or
Jefferson, probably, or is that a sign? Was he a signing? Can't remember.
No, he was a trade. It was a trade.
Probably Richard Jefferson.
Was that really the last blockbuster move they made?
Yeah,
trade wise.
Unless you want to consider Derek White and DeJounte Murray getting draft picks in return. I mean, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. It's not Richard Jefferson. It would be the Kawhi DeMar DeRozan deal.
Yeah. I mean, that was like the last. But that they were forced their hand. They forced their hand. We never seen them be aggressive and be like, you know what? Sure. Let's put it out there. Here's Keldon. Here's Sohan. Bring in, perennial all-star still in his prime to pair with Wemby. I mean, we haven't seen that type of level. And they really haven't. The Big Three era was dominant. Robinson era was somewhat okay. It was all right. Sean Elliott, him, and, Dennis Rodman for a spell. But, yeah, I think it's time for this team to make a blockbuster move. And that if that means a fire sale, they got to consider it. Do you think fire sale, or really the concept of it, necessarily, blowing up the team, should that be on the table this offseason? Should that be something they should look at?
I think so. It's a possibility. I mean, you're coming into the offseason knowing you've got all this cap money, all this cap room, you've got all these draft picks, you've got young players who people, who GMs are probably interested in. I mean, I know Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson can make a difference for some of these playoff teams. So I think that you go into the offseason with the anticipation of making a lot of phone calls. You've got to get some kind of deal made somewhere. If not, I mean, you're going to see the same team come back next year with a couple of extra draft picks who, honestly, Jeff, I would be so happy to see the Spurs get, draft picks. But because of their recent draft pick history, I'm not as excited for the draft. I feel like a lot of it could be screwed up. We still haven't seen anything from, Wesley or Malachi. Honestly, between those two guys, I've seen more out of Suzuku than I have between those two guys. So
I'll push back a little bit on you. I think Wesley has been playing a lot better.
Wesley's coming around. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say he's not, but I think with Suzuku, you're getting that player that makes a bigger difference than a lot of these guys on the team do. You've seen kind of the emergence of Dominic Barlow, as a big man for the Spurs. So it's you go into the offseason with a fire sale, but to be honest, do you really expect them to do anything? Because I
No.
really don't expect them. Honestly, it's kind of like Jerry Jones. We like the team we have, basically.
Oh man.
I don't see
I
that.
brought
I don't see anything happening. And if I do, it's because
so
they
you
trade
wait,
their
wait, are you
draft
saying
pick.
you wouldn't be surprised if they run it back?
No, I really wouldn't, because
Wow.
it's like they're scared to pull the trigger on stuff unless their hand is forced. So do you really think the San Antonio Spurs front office gives a damn what fans think?
Oh no, of course they don't.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
of course they don't.
you scream Trey Young. Trey wants to play with Wemby. You make the call, but Atlanta wants to gut your draft capital.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You don't draft, you don't, this isn't, Herschel Walker. You don't give away, all of
Yeah.
your draft capital for one player who you expect to help you win. It doesn't
Mhm.
happen like that.
No, absolutely it doesn't. But again, they got to make a move. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it's clear now. This team is just not well put together, and they got to get better. And the one way they can instantly get better right now is considering a fire sale. Would they do that? I don't think they will.
Mm-mm.
You're likely to see some players come back, like leave a sale. I would hope they keep Trey Jones, even if he stays off on the bench. I think that would be a smart move for them.
Mhm.
I want to give Sohan another season, keep him around. But outside of those three guys, man, I don't know. I think that's about it for me.
I don't even
I
think
mean,
Sohan. I mean,
really? Yeah.
I he was. It's hard to say because I remember the draft night too. I think I was doing a live draft
Mhm.
show, and I remember questioning like, why Sohan at that pick? I
Mhm.
mean, and then I've heard people say, well, he's kind of Boris Diaw. He can do a little bit of
Yeah, I
everything,
remember that. Yeah.
But I mean, have you even seen remotely anything similar to Boris Diaw? I mean,
No.
you see spurts, you see
Yeah.
glimpses of what could be, but I don't see very much of anything. And again, another draft pick that was missed.
Wow. I put Sohan's picture on there for you to, look him in the eyes. You say that.
I will say, Jeremy, I do not expect you to be here next season. If you are, you are, but you're one guy that I definitely would take calls on. I mean, I would.
All
I
right.
would definitely
All
take
right. Well, there you have it. All right. When we get back, we're going to discuss you guys, the Locked On Spurs fans. What are y'all talking about on the comment section on the YouTube page? That's coming up next right here with Locked On Spurs. All right. I would like to talk to you now about BetterHelp. This show episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So you got to check it out right now. If you're thinking of online therapy, BetterHelp should be your one-stop place to get what you need to be a better person or to improve upon the things that you're doing well already. So yeah, BetterHelp. I mean, what more do you need? It's convenient. It's easy to use. It's everything you need from online therapy. And look, sometimes we all need the opportunity to get things off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get at you. So let that out. It's very important to do that, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So if you really feel that you need that therapy, if you really feel not improving your life or just getting better or just fixing some things, you may need some course correction, is where BetterHelp comes in. Now, look, we get it. The Spurs are having a bad season. I understand, sometimes there's more to life than just what's on the court, silver and black. There's more other things, whether that's your job, your relationships, you as an individual, everything you need to just help you improve upon is where you got to go to BetterHelp. But therapy can be different for everyone. Some of y'all have bigger problems, some of you have small problems, but whatever it is, you need to get that off your chest every once in a while, and that's where BetterHelp comes in. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, I want to talk to you about Mustfingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Go check it out right now. San Antonio, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive in the 281 to 1604 area. They got it all. They got friendly staff. It's a proud local sponsor of Locked On Spurs, and they proudly serve the San Antonio community with the best coffee drinks out there in San Antonio. You need a latte? They got it. You need a cold brew? They got that too. You need their signature drink like the Mudslinger? Well, they got that as well. By the way, I recommend you getting that. That'd be a great introduction to the world of coffee. But hey, I've been always talking about those Red Bull infused lightning bolt series. Well, they've gotten better. Now, they started using Lotus Energy instead of Red Bull. Now, Lotus has similar caffeine to Red Bull, but 7 power plant extracts, and it gives you more flexibility in creating new drinks. And look, they still got Red Bull available, but hey, they'll always default to now moving forward to Lotus Energy. Now, the Lightning Bolt line, they got the Alien. They got that now made with the Lotus Energy. So yeah, if you can figure out the Alien, it's about Victor Wembanyama. That's their signature drink for him. They combine natural caffeine and powerful blend of 7 plant extracts for the new and improved Lightning Bolt that'll keep you powered up all day. In other words, you got to go to Muslinger's Drive-Thru Coffee, located at 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive between 21 and 1604. Open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Follow them on social media at Muslinger SATX, Threads, X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. They're all there, and they're very active with you all, the San Antonio community. Pitch them an idea of a new drink. They may make it for you and name it in your honor. Happened to me, maybe it happened to you. Go to Muslinger's Drive-Thru Coffee, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive right now. Hey, by the way, they got mini donuts, and they recently sold out. They're that good. So go again right now. Muslinger's Drive-Thru Coffee, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Go there right now because life is too short for bland coffee. And we're back with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. Let him know you appreciate him taking out Thanos and saving the entire universe and unsnapping you, from the Thanos snap. How do you do it, Rudy? I mean, how do you do it every single day?
I train 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and my training is just snapping my finger. So I do that for 24 hours a day, man, and that's pretty much all I can do. But
your snap is stronger than the Thanos snap.
Yeah, I don't need the gauntlet to make people disappear.
Oh, that's talk right there.
That's West Side San Antonio talk, man. I'm sorry.
He has a great show on YouTube, a part of the Alamo City Sports Podcast, Sweep the League. He'll talk about it in just a few seconds. But Rudy, as always, we always do now, we're trying to get the Locked On Spurs fans a little bit more involved. They're leaving comments left and right every single day. I would love to read them all. We can't, so we're going to pick 2. So let's start off with the first one. Rudy is from, I'm going to try my best. Sometimes these names are wild. Raul Weezy. All right. His comment is about who we're talking about, Jeremy Sohan. He says, not going to lie, I don't understand what people see in Sohan. Just watching him on the court says how unfit of a player he is for our team. Thank you, Raul Weezy, for that quote. And yeah, it looks like some fans are kind of 50-50 on Sohan. Do you think it's because he's such an up and down player? One day he's great, next day he's not. 2 games later he's good. 3 games now he's bad. I mean, do you think it's just the inconsistency with him?
It's pretty much the inconsistency. You see, like I said, you see kind of glimpses of what can be with Jeremy, but the improvement outside of so 3-point shooting, I mean his free throw shooting went up when he started going one-handed. So there are improvements, but do those improvements equal to wins? No, not necessarily. I mean, you kind of got a guy out there that's just, and man, this is so disrespectful, Jeff, and I'm gonna get killed with this comment.
Yeah, go for it.
But when I said I didn't really trust Jeremy when they were drafting him, I didn't know what we were getting. I still know what we were getting. It's almost like when you go to Gold's Gym or the Y and you have a guy out there that just, he's in there to play. He'll do a couple of things that are good for your team. He'll, he won't contribute most of the time. He'll contribute, a couple of plays here, a couple of plays there. But it's one of those guys. You walk in, you're like, where does this guy fit anywhere on this court? I don't know. You tried him at point guard, obviously didn't work. You kind of just let him be, and it just doesn't work. So there's really no image or anything for Jeremy right now, and that's really the frustrating part when it comes to Jeremy Sohan for fans.
Yeah. Even for me, it's the inconsistency. And look, he's a great person. Really, when he's on, he's on. When he's defending, he's at one of the best. But there's still some growth for him. It's just his sophomore season. Technically, he should still be at Baylor, right? It should be his senior year, I believe.
Yeah.
So, there's Papa said it over and over again. These guys are learning the fundamentals. And so you maybe give Sohan another season, let him see what he can do, and then take it from there. You're going to say something, Rudy?
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing that people always praised him on was his defense. And that's where I think that a lot of people might miss the fact, but I'm actually with them. Have you seen any improvement on his defensive side?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have you seen it? I haven't, honestly, I
Oh,
haven't seen much at all, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know
I
if
mean,
anybody,
collectively, the team is one of the worst defensive teams.
yeah,
They're all of them are bad.
yeah.
Well,
So
except for
again,
Wemby, outside of Wemby, but that's it.
yeah, I think he has the best defensive rating this year, second
Yeah.
best defense rating behind Gobert. So I mean, yeah, it's tough to put a pinpoint on what Jeremy's actually doing with the Spurs right now.
All right. The next comment, is from Van Lyke. This is about Wemby and the DPOI. He says it's less of a snub and more of an intentional NBA shenanigans. So he thinks that the NBA is intentionally fixing it, Rudy. So Rudy Gobert gets the honor. DPOY is an individual honor, yet the armchair critics would argue that the team needs to be factored into the argument. In other words, a team at the top of the league, standing or near it, should produce the Defensive Player of the Year, and not a bottom feeder, despite the fact that Wemby's numbers do not lie. That's going to be debated. And I think years from now, by the way, thank you, Van Lyke, for the comment. I think years from now, Rudy, there might be some people that look back and say, you know what? What were they thinking? Individually, Wemby is a better defensive player than pretty much the NBA in his rookie season. We did this before with Tim Duncan. We look back like, wait a minute, how did he never get the Defensive Player of the Year award? Yet he ranked up there, in a lot of categories, defensive categories. But where do you take this? Do you think it's less of a snub and more NBA shenanigans, as Van Lyke says?
So with the Defensive Player of the Year, I'm kind of in the middle. I understand both sides. I understand the league. I understand Van Lyke's comment, and other fans as well. But I just mentioned it a second ago. Rudy Gobert leads the league in defensive rating. So Wemby is second. So if you go by stats, technically, stat-wise, Rudy Gobert is a better defender. Just going by stats, we figure in the blocks and all that, which that's what both men actually are, known for. They're both shot blockers and rim protectors. But you got to factor in also the fact of how much does this person help his team win on the defensive side of the ball. As you can tell, Minnesota is way better team than San Antonio Spurs. But if you go strictly off of blocks, obviously Wemby wins, but they're going to factor in the overall rating. So right now, Gobert's 1 defensively on the rating. Wemby is 2. So it's hard to separate fact and fiction and all this stuff. They're going to factor in Minnesota being one of the best teams in the league. So it happens in the MVP race as well, Jeff. I mean, by all means, you're going to probably see Nikola Jokic and SGA being factored as the 1-2 MVP guys, but Jason Tatum is being left out, even though they have the best record in the league. It's kind of it's politics. So everybody has to understand, because it's politics, you're gonna be disappointed somewhere. But as of right now, just straight facts as of today, Gobert's 1 defensive rating, Wemby is 2. That's kind of where statistically it is there.
Yeah, exactly. And if you go with that measurement, then Gobert wins. And I don't think Wemby have an issue with that. He joked recently about, hey, win it now, Gobert. I'm going to go for it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I think Victor knows it is what it is. And excuse me. So, yeah, look, trust me, everybody, he's going to get it eventually. Maybe as soon as next season. It's going to happen. So I would just pump the brakes a bit on that. One thing we never politic about is that Rudy's show, Sweep the League, is one of the best on YouTube and across the globe, because he is global. I mean, he wears it on his shirt there. Look at it. It's global. Yeah, he's global. Tell us about Sweep the League, Rudy. What is cooking over there?
Yeah, man. So I mean, we're in March Madness, so a lot of our conversations about the March Madness tournament, we got into some really good talk about also past collegiate players that never panned out in the NBA. So I know the Spurs that you figured they're going to be great NBA players, and they never had them. Spurs have had a couple of guys like that, but yeah, we've got NFL draft 30 days away, so that's going to be coming up a lot as well. Kind of don't really talk much about the Spurs because it's kind of tough to talk about the same stuff over and over again. Yeah. But we do talk about NBA overall. So just catch us on Monday through Friday at 4:00 Central Time now on YouTube.
You're talking about right now about college players not making it in the NBA as far as making a big splash. I remember this name, James Anderson.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, OSU, right?
Yeah. He was the big steal. Remember? He was a big steal.
Mhm.
And then where is he now? I have no idea where he's at.
That would be a nice Locked On Spurs presents Looking Out For or something like that to get some of these older players. But I mean, man, remember the hype behind Felipe Lopez out of St. John?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
I mean,
huge hype.
he was,
And it was remember Adam Morrison? Was he the most
he was
overrated college player?
He was brought up. That was Adam Morrison was another one. There's actually a lot of guys that we brought up was I didn't bring him up, but I wanted to the other day with Sean Respert from Michigan State as another one. Drafted him in the lottery. Right. He was kind of screwed out because I think he went on the team with Glenn Robinson and Ray Allen, so he probably didn't get enough shine at the time. But you just have a lot of guys. I mean, the whole Arkansas team with Corliss Williamson, Scotty Thurman. I mean, you figure those guys, the UCLA team with Ed O'Bannon, Charles O'Bannon, Toby Bailey, Tyus Sedney, these guys, you're like, oh, they're going to be great pros. They just never panned out, man.
Never panned out, yeah. That's why the Spurs got to do their homework. It's going to be a very important offseason once this season is over. But again, follow Rudy on X at Sweep the League. As always, we thank you guys for making Locked On Spurs the first listen each and every day. You guys are the everydayers. We'll be back tomorrow. More Silver and Black talk. Season's almost over, guys. Then the fun part will begin, the postseason and rebuilding this team. Don't know who's coming on tomorrow, but we'll be talking all things Spurs. So check out Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel, only on YouTube. 24/7 Sports on YouTube. Yep, streaming. It's all there. Go subscribe to it right now. But for Rudy, the Thanos Destroyer, Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.